This is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohn, and welcome to ABC7 at 7. Topping our news tonight, we have seen recently the havoc computer hackers can wreak. It is believed Russian hackers were able to breach the computer system of the Democratic National Committee. The result, embarrassing emails were made public, and party chair, Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was forced to resign. Tonight, we learn the city of Sarasota is the latest victim of computer hacking, and the details are chilling. Sarasota's police department confirms the city's systems were breached by an unidentified hacker which used ransomware. Hackers were able to take control of the city's system and lock users out. The hackers demanded an undisclosed amount of money to be paid to unlock the city's files. The city refused to pay, and after a day of being shut out, IT technicians were able to recover the files. The FBI is now conducting a criminal investigation. Florida's Department of Transportation is considering ways to relieve traffic at one of the Suncoast's busiest intersections. The intersection of US 41 and Gulfstream Avenue in Sarasota has experienced backups for years. Now, FDOT is considering ways to improve the flow of traffic, including putting a roundabout in. The city of Sarasota is paying for a $436,000 study into the location.
During the season, it's just an incredible backlog of automobiles, all the way across the bridge and sometimes extending out into St. Armand Circle. So it's pretty congested.
I can't believe how busy it is. It's going to be a nightmare when these buildings get finished.
The study is expected to be finished late next year. FDOT will then decide what, if anything, to do about it. Now to Manatee County, where the school district is asking voters to approve an extension of a half-cent sales tax this November. The tax was first approved in 2002 and brings in nearly $30 million each year for the district. The money is needed to fund capital projects like remodeling, renovating, and updating equipment in the classroom.
We want to continue to focus on 21st century technology, replacing old computers with ones that are able to work much better on our network.
If voters reject the extension on the November ballot, the tax will expire next year. An update now on the lawsuit challenging the state's decision to hold back third graders who opted out of state testing. A federal judge is denying a request by Florida's education commissioner to take over the case. Lawyers for the Department of Education argue the case belongs in federal court because it falls under the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The lawsuit will now head back to court in Tallahassee. A Northport man is recovering tonight after being attacked by a dog, which he then shot. The incident took place Wednesday morning while the man was walking his own dog. That's when a neighbor's dog allegedly got loose and came after the man. He pulled out his firearm and shot the dog, which was then taken to a vet and is now recovering.
The gentleman had a permit to carry the gun, and he certainly was fearful for himself. So at this point, we've deemed this to be a justified shooting. No charges are pending in this case.
We're told the dog that attacked the man was not properly vaccinated. The owner could now face charges. Venice Regional Bayfront Health has had more than its fair share of problems of late, sewage leaks and maintenance issues. Now word its parent company is exploring plans for a new hospital. Several locations are being considered. While a new hospital would replace the current one, millions of dollars in investment will continue to be made on infrastructure and technology at the current hospital. Hospital officials plan to submit an application of need to the state by October 12th. And Bob, I think for the first afternoon this week, I did not hear thunder or lightning outside.
Yeah, pretty good assessment there. I'll tell you what, we are changing a pattern now as a result of a frontal system. And what that means is less activity over the weekend, not as many storms, and looks like most of it will be inland. We'll talk about that in a little bit, Alan, but you're right. Not as many storms right now. In fact, there's only one real area we're watching across the entire Suncoast, and that's down near Northport, Port Charlotte, and Punta Gorda. Get a look at Casey Key. A great day out there on the beach today. Until about 4 o'clock, the clouds started rolling in, and those were debris clouds left over from some earlier storms. They were around 3 o'clock. We had the Suncoast breeze set up. The sea breeze moved on in, and a few showers were around. 85 now. The heat index actually coming up a little bit because of the increased sunshine now. It feels like 94 degrees out there. Humidity at 74%. The pressure 2998. That's holding steady. A review of the radar picture showing the activity, whether it was around Palmetto, also into Bradenton earlier, at least eastern portions of Bradenton, up to Parrish, and then down south. Near Fruitville and I-75, even into Terra had some rainfall, but that has all since moved on. And now just that one area I mentioned down near Northport and Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda, that's pushing to the southwest. So if you have any evening plans north of Northport, and for the most part north of Venice, looks to be okay this evening, but look out in possibly Inglewood as well as Rotunda. Rainfall amounts near Inglewood, just to the north there, over 1.5 inches, and about 1/8 of an inch near Terra and I-75. 92 the high today. That was a couple degrees above average. 77 was the morning low. And with this front now to the north of us, we're going to see onshore flow. And what that means is really warm and muggy overnight readings. We're talking 80-degree temperatures for lows. That's not too low. And limited shower and thunderstorm activity, I think, right on through Tuesday of next week. For boaters, shapes up to be a great boating week too, Alan. Just a few showers you have to dodge. The extended forecast does call for only a slight chance for showers over the weekend. So good baseball weather.
This weekend in Sarasota, go Scorpions.
That's right.
All right, thanks a lot, Bob. And still to come, the Great Recession dealt a major blow to banks, especially small community banks. But find out how regulations put into place is putting the squeeze on local loan providers. That story when we come back.
Download ABC7's free all-new news app at your app store today.
They're coming from Tampa, Fort Myers, even Orlando. They're coming from everywhere for the Sarasota Ford Promise. We promise we're more than a dealership. We're a destination with a movie theater, massage room, aquarium, cafe, and more. We promise to give you top dollar for your trade, even if you don't buy from us. And if you do, we promise you the best deal. Bring us any competitor's ad and we'll beat it by at least $1,000. That's why they're coming from everywhere to Sarasota Ford, where 41 meets 301. SarasotaFord.com.
This is a special health alert for seniors suffering with joint pain. If you have Medicare insurance, you may qualify for high-quality support braces at little or no cost.
I'm thrilled with my knee braces.
Now, there is a simple and proven solution for seniors to get out of pain with state-of-the-art support braces.
I barely feel any pain at all.
Braces for your knees and back, as well as your shoulders and ankles, too.
I'm so happy with the quality of these braces.
Call now, and you could qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
I can play ball again, and it doesn't hurt.
And because of my Medicare coverage, it costs me next to nothing.
So call now.
And because I have this red, white, and blue Medicare card, my braces have cost me just about nothing.
It's true. You may get a knee, back, shoulder, and ankle brace at little or no cost.
They qualified me for 2 knee braces and a back brace.
If you have knee or back pain, give them a call. They can help.
1-800-476-8967. 1-800-476-8967.
Local community banks can be a blessing for those hoping to start a small business. For one, it's easier to speak to someone in person, and you're also more likely to get a loan. But there is concern community banks may become a thing of the past. ABC7's Christopher Brantley joins us with why. Christopher.
Well, Alan, certainly following the market crash in 2008, the U.S. government, hoping to ensure it didn't happen again, imposed tougher regulation on banks. That act is called Dodd-Frank. And while many hoped it would prevent another banking issue, some believe it could have created one. Sable Palm Bank is a small community-focused bank. Its president and CEO, Neil McCurry Jr., took over the bank in 2013.
Sable Palm, like most banks, still had lingering residual loan problems from the recessions.
McCurry said when he took over, Sable Palm had more than they could handle in non-performing loans that weren't being paid on.
We had approximately 5% of our assets were non-performing. However, 5% of your assets, non-performing assets, takes about 1/3 of your time.
Much of that was caused by the economy crash in 2007 and 2008. In response to the crash, Congress enacted 22,000 pages of regulations called the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, meant to hold banks more accountable for the loans they hand out. But it could have backfired. According to the New York Times, the number of community banks has gone down 14% between Dodd-Frank's passage in 2010 to 2014.
Banks have always historically sold to other banks over time. The difference was that new banks were being created at the same time to replace them. And what we've really seen since the onset of the recession is that essentially no new banks have been starting in the United States and certainly in Florida.
According to McCurry, with all those new regulations, starting a bank now would be completely different than when he started one in 1999.
In 1999, when I started a bank, it took a little under $6 million to start a new institution in this area, and the requirements would likely be $20 to $25 million in today's market.
Dr. Laura Mattia is a financial advisor and financial planning program director at the University of South Florida.
Whenever there's a problem, the answer by the regulators is to create additional regulation. The problem with that is that it doesn't usually get at the heart of the problem.
Mattia, like so many, say the problem in 2007 and 8 was a lead-up of years of bad loans and poor ethics on Wall Street.
The terrible thing is that a lot of this regulation was really put in place because of the problems that the larger banks created, not the smaller banks. Yet it's the smaller banks that are being hit the hardest.
If you are brave enough to start a new bank, McCurry says be prepared to be watched closely.
Regulators are going to scrutinize the people involved as well. They're going to want to make sure you have the experience, the background, and the depth of knowledge to properly adhere to all the regulations that we operate under.
I still don't think that it prevents anything bad from happening. I think that they could continue to, just as long as you fill out this paperwork and do these certain things, it doesn't necessarily mean that the behavior is going to change.
But community banks do have a large impact on the community. Take Sable Palm, for example.
In 2015, made over $35 million $35 million in loans to people, businesses, entrepreneurs, and the local community. We only lend money to people and businesses in this area. In 2016 through August, we've already done over $31 million, so we're certainly on track to greatly exceed last year.
With all those loans, McCurry tells us they have 0 non-performing loans, a stark contrast to the 5% they had in 2013. And McCurry doesn't tell people to stay away from starting a new bank.
You've got to be willing to work hard and have a true spirit of entrepreneurialism to want to do it. And but I think it's a great opportunity. You know.
And now to give you some perspective here, we looked at the FDIC website, which tells you how much each bank has in assets. And hold on to your hats, folks. Bank of America reported $2.1 trillion in 2016. Wells Fargo reported $1.8 trillion. And Sable Palm reported $135 million. Alan?
Christopher, thank you. And when we come back, our roundtable.
Do you have what it takes to become a champion? The Sarasota YMCA Sharks swim team has been developing champions since 1961. Fall swim team tryouts for kids ages 6 through 18 are being held August 15th through the 18th and August 22nd to the 25th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Tryouts are held at the Evelyn Sadler Jones branch, YMCA's Selby Aquatic Center. For more information, visit sarasotaymca.org/sharks.
Is your mop a dirty, disgusting mess? You need the Hurricane 360 Spin Mop System, the only mop and bucket that spins the dirt away. A system that cleans practically anything and everything with super absorbent microfiber. Dip it in the washer side and the mess releases into the bucket. Then place it in the dryer side and push on the pedal. You get a clean mop pad that's practically dry and ready for more. And your hands will never again touch a dirty, disgusting mop. The heads are washable and reusable. Get the Hurricane 360 Spin Mop System for just 2 payments of $19.99. You'll also get a Sticky Buddy, the reusable sticky roller that picks up pet hair and lint and washes clean in seconds. You can take advantage of our 2-for-1 Pick It Up special and get a second spin mop set. Just pay additional shipping and fee. And we'll upgrade you to free priority handling. So don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-394-1524 to get your Hurricane Spin Mop double offer. So hurry and call 1-800-394-1524. Call now.
the official salon of ABC7. Cutting Loose Salon.
Joining us for more on community banks is Neil McCurry, President and CEO of Sable Palm Bank, and Sean Merriman, President and CEO of Gateway Bank of Southwest Florida. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's start with, as simply as you can, because banking is such a complicated issue, explaining to the public, we saw what happened with the big banks, and that is why Dodd-Frank was imposed, so the same thing can't happen again. Why are the regulations that many would argue are a good idea for the big banks not problematic for community banks?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. One of the biggest issues with Dodd-Frank is that it was a big, broad brush for all banks, and unfortunately,
and it didn't make a difference between the big banks and community banks.
It really didn't, and I think as history has now determined, it wasn't the small community banks that caused the issues in the banking crisis, the most recent banking crisis. It really was the larger banks, a lot of the Wall Street firms, mortgage issues, and unfortunately, because community banks are challenged to raise capital from time to time when they need it, and being privately held, it really put a burden on us for a variety of reasons. We don't make as much money as we used to. We have more compliance officers than we've ever had, and it just has made our life a little bit more challenging in that you have to hold more capital, you're making less money, and as investors, it's not as good of a return to investors. It can be challenging from time to raise capital.
Still, the Wall Street Journal has pointed out that just last year, earnings rose 9.7 industry-wide, 7.5 according to the FDIC. Community banks portfolios grew 8.6% versus 6.4% for the entire industry, including the big banks.
Yeah, well, I think community banks continue, no matter what the regulatory environment is, to be successful going on serving the needs of the community and the businesses, the entrepreneurs. And I think Sean's bank, our banks, the other community banks in the area have all been successful in growing their institutions. But certainly we're operating a very challenging oversight right now, which has a significant amount of cost to it, and thus causes pressures on your profitability, making it more challenging and raising new capital.
Now, those were the numbers I cited nationwide that the Wall Street Journal looked at, but are there particular factors unique to community banks in Florida?
I would say absolutely. When you go back and you look at what's happened in the state of Florida over like a 40-year window, in the 70s we had as many as 800 community banks headquartered in Florida. Today we have less than 136. And what happens is we have 300 banks in total in the state. So the competitive pressures from the large super regional banks is intense. I would have to say, and I think Neil would agree, we have more competition in the state of Florida than probably anywhere in the entire country because we have that wealth factor, we have the demographic, we have population growth happening. So it does put pressure on community banks because we're competing with the likes of the Bank of the Americas, the Wells Fargo, et cetera. So unlike some places like in the great state of North Dakota, for example, 83% of the banks in that state are owned locally. Down here in Florida, it's less than 45%. So you can see that the amount of out-of-state banks competing here is intense.
But wouldn't that also be true in states like New York to California or larger metropolitan areas?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's certainly plenty of competition, but the truth is that's not new. It's always been very competitive around here. And I, again, will say, banks like Sean's continue to be successful in a very competitive market. I think our challenge is we have interest rate challenges. Interest rates were lower when the recession came upon us, and while the recession is by and large gone, we're still struggling with low interest rates as an industry, and we have increased regulatory costs. So we have a lot of factors that we didn't face in years past, and on top of always being very competitive.
Obviously, the lower interest rates are good for people who are trying to buy homes, not good for the banks or the people who depend on bonds to to make their incomes.
Well, we have a big retiree community, and quite a few of them live on fixed incomes and Social Security and what they might earn on their deposits, and they don't want to put money in the stock markets. And historically, they've used certificates of deposits as a portion of their income, and they took a pay cut 10 years ago, and they haven't recovered from it.
Right. Let me talk a little bit about home loans and foreclosures, and whether that particularly has impacted community banks in Florida and is there a difference between how it has impacted community banks and the larger banks?
It really hasn't negatively impacted, I think, our community banks, because the small community banks typically focus on small to medium-sized business loans. Mortgage banking in my bank is a relatively small percentage. It's about 22 to 25% of my business. So although it's important and we make mortgage loans, it's the commercial side of the bank that really drives the earnings for most community banks.
But Neil, we have talked before about the continuing problems of foreclosures in Florida. We still lead the nation, I believe, and whereas the housing market has improved, there are still a great deal of people here on the Sun Coast and in other parts of Florida who are still struggling in this economy.
Yeah, there's two sides to that coin. On one hand, we lead foreclosures for the whole country, but foreclosures are down dramatically from years past, which is great news. Price values, home values have gone up, which has helped a lot of homeowners that had negative equity in their home and couldn't sell in the past. Now they could. But there are challenges. Regulations makes it harder to get a mortgage, and prices have continued to go up, making home ownership more expensive in this area. So it's tough, and you know the local area economy overall has done well, but it's an uneven recovery. We're certainly seeing that not everybody is enjoying increased wages and earnings, and it's having a real challenge on a lot of the people in our community.
So what would both of you ask our esteemed members of the United States Congress in terms of making changes to Dodd-Frank that would not impact the understandable new regulations on some of the bigger banks, which are to blame for the financial collapse, but ease off pressure on smaller community banks who, as you say, are not responsible for what happened? And in addition to that, I know this is kind of long, do you think that the political environment makes it difficult for Congress to do anything about it?
Well, the challenge is you know, Dodd-Frank's original purpose, big picture, was that banks were too big, and they were concerned about that. And certainly what's happened since then is the biggest banks have gotten even bigger. We were talking before the show that how many of the banks, a dozen of the banks control 60% of the deposits in the country, and which is a big increase over years past. So I think the primary emphasis of Dodd-Frank really hasn't come to fruition, but a lot of the regulations imposed on us has. I think our challenge is that the end of our name has the word bank, and the biggest banks in the country have the word bank, and we're painted with the same brush. And I would hope that regulators and politicians would truly look at us as two different industries, and spend time learning about what Sean and our bank and other community banks do every day to help our community, and why we should be treated completely separate than larger institutions.
And we'll have to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for
Our
joining
pleasure.
us. We'll be back in a moment with viewer comments.
Just because someone grows older, does that mean they have to grow apart from their friends or from the things they love to do? With Right at Home, it doesn't. Right at Home's professional team thoughtfully selects caregivers to help with personal care, housekeeping, meals, and most of all, staying engaged in life.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Are you ready to go?
Oh, I sure am.
We can provide the right care right at home.
They took that stress and that tension when I was particularly feeling very bad after that nasty car accident, and it was such a relief to know that I didn't have to bear that burden alone, that I had help.
Our goal is to not just get a satisfactory settlement on their case. We want them up on their feet, happy again. They've gotten their life back.
Attention, this is an important message for anyone who had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to their heart or lungs. Did your IVC filter move, break, or cause organ damage? The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, even death. If you or a loved one suffered serious complications, call IVC Filter Helpline now. you may be entitled to compensation. IVC filters are designed to prevent blood clots. If your IVC filter moved or broke and you suffered heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, or if a loved one died as a result, call IVC Filter Helpline today. Our network of experienced attorneys is ready to fight for you. You'll pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call today for a free confidential consultation. Don't fight this alone. Call IVC Filter Helpline now.
Please call 800-897-6764. That is 800-897-6764.
Don't miss the Weddings of Sarasota 16th Annual Wedding Show at the iconic Sarasota Municipal Auditorium on US 41, Sunday, August 28th from noon to 4 p.m. The runway show is on the stage at 3 p.m. Enjoy hors d'oeuvres and live entertainment. $2,000 in Weddings of Sarasota dollars will be given away after the runway show, but you must be present to win. Make sure to pre-register at weddingsofsarasota.com. Brides and grooms are free if registered by midnight, August 26th. Guests only $5. Weddings of Sarasota. Register today.
Manatee County Animal Services is almost at double capacity. The shelter is striving to be a no-kill, but with more animals and fewer adoptions, it is becoming a challenge, and here is what you had to say. Gary Nace writes, start offering free spray and neuter to all pet owners and make it a county ordinance. And Debbie writes, if people would just take care of their pets, the problem wouldn't exist. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news at 7. And that is all the time we have for this evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alan Cohn.